I am very lucky to have originated this role, and I'm even luckier to get to do it several times after having done it there too. In the original process, being a part of the workshop is great musically and vocally. You get to be there to see things kind of start to work. You also feel like you get a team mentality with everybody. But then when you get to repeat things, just like any other opera, when you repeat a role, you have new casts, you have a new director, new conductor, and that brings some definite new synergy. And then there begins to be also some new character things that you can focus on. For me, Dr. Richardson, I think, has evolved in one, he's gotten older, literally. I feel like my voice has changed and has grown, and also I think Dr. Richardson's impact in the opera actually has grown in the two different productions that I've had. The first production was in a smaller space, in a smaller theater, a smaller audience, and with a chamber orchestra. And then now in this beautiful space here in Houston, we're gonna have a bigger audience. We're gonna have a little bit further of distance between us and the audience, and the orchestration is bigger. And I think it's actually gonna be great for this space and this audience. Dr. Richardson is the only doctor in this small Scottish village. And he has a big responsibility because he probably practices a very general type of medicine. He probably, he does a lot of things for this small town. He has to learn how to help people cope with grief, cope with their guilt, and he says directly to Bess that he's not like her old doctor and he won't just prescribe her pills. The scene that I'm a part of is actually called Mental Health, and he is helping Bess by asking her questions that lead to the discovery that Bess, after this big accident that's happened to Jan, Bess feels so much grief, she feels so much guilt because she thinks that God is punishing her for asking for Jan to come home from the rig. And in that way, Dr. Richardson wants to connect with Bess to let her know that she doesn't have any fault in what has happened to Jan. And unfortunately, the rest of Act 2 unfolds with many different people trying to get her to react differently than the way she does. But she reacts the way that she does because she believes that she has that power and that direct line to God that brings her to do these things. There are several characters in this opera who are all trying to give Bess their best intention. Between the councilman, Dodo, her mother, everybody who's in the clergy of the church that she's a part of, and the doctor, I believe, is one of the voices of reason for her. I think he has her best intentions in mind. I think everybody does. Even down to her mother, who's quite a bit abusive, and Dodo, who's the kindest to her. Almost, she becomes that maternal figure for Bess. The town is either made up of people who are really, really knit in that community, or these are outsiders. The doctor is an outsider, but he does have her best intentions, not only for her physical health, but for her emotional, spiritual, and mental health. And he wants to see her survive and become better, even if Jan is still sick. Bess's behaviors, her decisions that she's making are all very much based on her own feelings, on her own belief in God, belief in her husband Jan, belief in the fact that she has this power that they can heal him. And Dr. Richardson, I think, acts as the voice of reason in this town to say to Bess, yes, you do have power, but your power is how innocent you are and how good you are. And that power is actually really important for her to understand, rather than the power that she ends up falling to at the end of the opera. It really makes for kind of an amazing operatic heroine. I mean, really, like, in relation to the other Lars von Trier films also, I think all of these women that he shows are very operatic. There's so much passion. There's so much that they're going through in relation with every character, and I think it actually makes so much sense on the opera stage. When you're a performer of stories that are really, really difficult to tell, I think a lot of times you need to have something within you that does connect personally to it. I think that it does help to actually be a true person who can play a true person on stage. And with this opera, there's some very, very difficult things there's difficult things that are in this story to try and tell. In the end, I think that there are things that everyone has either gone through, whether it's religious persecution, whether it's feeling othered in the place where you've grown up, whether it's feeling like you're not allowed to marry outside of somebody who's in your community or from your city, or who's not accepted into the people that you've grown up with. For me, I feel like being the doctor is a little bit of an outsider into this community, but he's also trying to be almost a social worker. He's trying to help the community get better. And unfortunately, there's so many systems in place that keep him from being able to help somebody like Bess. And those are things that we can all connect to. Those are things that we all can understand in any story. And there's sometimes some things that are happening right now that make us feel like we have systems around us that make us a little scared. And we actually have to be able to tell stories that talk about how to get out of some of those. This story ends really, really badly for Bess. But I also think we need to tell stories that we know are fiction, that we understand that things when things go badly, and in the very end there is a little glimmer of hope. There's somewhat of a miracle that happens medically for Jan, and then there is this miracle of the bells that ring after Bess's death, and this metaphor of the bells ringing is really kind of great for a musician to kind of understand that past life there is a hope, and sometimes that's through music, sometimes that's through connection with people, sometimes that's through religion, sometimes it's through faith. And I think one of my favorite lines of Bess's in this is that my talent is that I can believe. And a lot of times we like to talk about talent as musicians or as performers as being something that we're grown with, but really belief and faith is something that we really have to work at. And I think that's also being a part of being a performer on stage, is understanding that you believe in what you're telling.